Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Tonight, we are talking about something that everybody thinks they know what it is, knows all about it. And I think in our Western culture, we've been kind of exposed to karma and jokes about karma. You know, your karma ran over my dogma, you know, that one. The very first time I heard that, I thought was hilarious and brilliant. I just loved it until I began to realize that we were trivializing and making fun of a very important traditional teaching in Eastern traditions. And that it really behooves us in the Western culture to familiarize ourselves with exactly what it really means. Because karma that we use in Western culture, we either trivialize it or make it a joke, or we fear it in a way because we sort of integrate it with our own punishment, our sense of punishment from salvation theology that we may have grown up with, this idea of a punishing God, or that there's someone or something laying in wait just to punish us or catch us doing something wrong or whatever. That sounds a little bit more like childhood to me, but nonetheless, it's still that same sense that somehow we're going to get caught doing something wrong. But that's not what karma really is. It's just how we knew how to relate without actually putting in the study and the practice needed to fully understand it. I'm not pretending to master it at all or fully understand it myself. So in my own practice, though, I have landed where Jack Kornfield takes this chapter that he calls karma, the heart is our garden. That's what he's referring to. And he says, the law of karma describes the way that cause and effect govern the patterns that repeat themselves throughout all of our life. Karma means that nothing arises by itself, that each experience is conditioned by that which precedes it. So everything is sort of like an endless progression. Thus, he says, our life is a series of interrelated patterns. Strictly speaking, there's no such thing as a definitive oak tree, for instance, he says. There's only the oak tree pattern, through which certain elements follow the cyclical law of karma, a particular arrangement of water, minerals, and the energy of sunlight that changes from acorn to sapling to large tree and over again. Acorn, sapling, large tree, acorn. You get it? That's what you do. That's what I do. That's what life does. It's a cycle. We can map it out. We can see it. I love the way he describes a pattern that in other words, you can't really say, well, this is an oak tree, but that's not an oak tree. If it's an acorn, an oak acorn, an oak sapling, or an oak fully mature tree, it's still all a manifestation as the oak tree. That came home to me in an insight I had when I was in New Mexico years ago. And I had climbed the cliff dwellings in the Anasazi settlement dwelling place in Bandelier Monument. And I climbed inside of a kiva, which is a sort of a sacred, hollowed out space. And I sat there and was just like dazzled. I was just in other worlds were coming into my mind, and I looked out, and on a cliff, side of a cliff that I could see of the red rock, there was impossibly a tree like probably a juniper, that was growing at a wide angle out into space off the side of this. And it was a small tree. And I was just dazzled by how did that tree grow there? How did it get to be like that? And I was meditating and I heard the connection of that tree representing me. And that this voice was calling me, little tree, that I'm a little tree. And I will tell you, my big ego did not like being called a little tree. I did not like it. I was feeling expansive and huge and wonderful, and I wanted it to be magnificent. I would have preferred a unicorn of some sort to have appeared, but little tree. And I heard when I was going through how I was reacting to that little tree thing, maybe not little tree, maybe it should be, I was revising what I was getting, and I heard like a little laughter, sort of, like, of course, laughter. And then the idea that little tree doesn't mean diminutive, junior. Little tree is in itself an entire pattern of energy that has within it all of the potential of what it's about to be, all of that future still attached, all of the short amount of time that it has spent already rooted and already growing, but so much possibility still ahead, that was a sort of a frozen state. I liked that much better, as you can imagine. And now I think of that little tree as even me, 30 years later, that still within my heart there is just endless potential, because I know that myself and you are an ever-changing, open spigot of divine energy flowing through you that has no beginning and no end. This idea of karma being one successive thing after another, sort of a series of events that we have some control over by our words and by our actions and by the ways in which we react. We do. There are certain things that we can control, some our own responses and the way that we can be, but we can't change conditions that happen to the plans that we make or to the things that we set in motion. Even with the best of intentions, stuff goes awry. Weather happens, doesn't it? Roofs cave in sometimes. Cars don't start. Jobs don't last. Relationships may not last. All kinds of plans we made may not happen. So there are things that we don't have under our control. But it doesn't matter. Karma is not about what happens. It's about how we react to what happens. And we generate the response that we have by setting the intention toward greater good in every condition. Being able to step back, pivot, reconfigure, add this new piece of evidence or energy into the plan that we had, and start in a whole different direction. This is what we can control. This is what we can do. Cornfield says, as we intend and then act, we create karma. So another key to understanding the creation of karma is becoming aware of intention. Intention means how are you oriented in your heart? What is it you want? What is it that you want to create here? What is your intention? What is your point of service here in the world? Are you trying to buff up your ego, for instance? Are you trying to prove something to somebody else? Is that what your actions, your words are all directed to? That's going to be your intention. No matter what you say, well, it'll be better if we do it my way. That's not a pristine, golden, beautiful thing to bring into the world. It's still in pushing off on somebody else, right? It's always trying to prove something else, right? So we see that it is the orientation of our heart, it is the intention that we act from that really carries the power of everything that we can do. Cornfield says, the heart is our garden, and along with each action, there is an intention that is planted like a seed, he says. We can use a sharp knife to cut someone, for instance. But if our intention is to do harm, we would be a murderer. We can perform an almost identical action to that cut. But if we are a surgeon, the intention is to heal and save a life. The action is the same, yet depending on its purpose of intention, it can be either a terrible act or a compassionate one. He says our actions might be very similar, our words might be similar, but if our intention is to create peace or bring harmony, it will create a very different kind of karmic result. As opposed to wanting to get one up, wanting to be right, wanting it my way, you get the difference. You know the difference. Your heart is the source of that radiated energy, the power that goes behind your words, that orients everything that you say and do, how you show up in the world, by your intention. What is it you wish to create here? What is it you really want here? Cornfield says it's easy to see in close business or personal relationships. We can say the same sentence to our partner or friend, and if the unspoken spirit in it is saying, in other words, if my intention behind it is, I love you and I want us to understand what's going on in this disagreement. If that's what, might not be my words, but if that's how I'm coming across, if that is what I really want, I love you, I remember even in this, I love you and I want to know what's going on right now, we'll get a different response. But if we say the same words with an underlying attitude of blame or defensiveness or criticism, with a slight tone of what's wrong with you behind those words, it'll create a whole different reaction. And the conversation could change into a real fight, right? We know the importance of being able to be in alignment with our hearts, putting our words and our actions. That is the beautiful teaching of karma. That is the practice. That is the discipline. Noticing where our heart is, not crafting the perfect words. I got to say it like this. Don't say it like that. It's not the perfect words. If you have the perfect heart orientation, if you reach into your heart and say, do I really need to be right at the end of this conversation? Or do I want to be reconciled at the end of this conversation? Do I want to have hope for my relationship, my friendship with this person? That we can be working partners again, collaborating like we were before. If that's what I really want, then my words will spill that energy, and I'll be able to communicate that to you. You'll feel it. My voice will soften. My words become less directed and more question, probably. What would you like to do here? What would you prefer? There's an open-hearted intention practice that Cornfield recommends. He says, pay very careful attention everywhere you go. This is something I'm going to task you with. This can be your homework from tonight. Pay very careful attention and notice the state of your heart, kind of what we did in meditation this evening. Notice when your heart is expansive. And you can do that willfully. You can do that by just breathing into your heart and thinking soft, loving thoughts of opening to joy, opening to peace, opening to safety and security, opening to the one you love. You can open the expansiveness of your heart. Cornfield says, start practicing paying attention to the state of your heart and the intention as you speak about even the smallest thing. When you're speaking with anyone in a regular conversation over coffee or whatever, notice, is your intention to be protected, to grasp and get something out of this, to defend yourself, put yourself above or beyond? Is your intention instead to open, to reach out of concern for the other person, in compassion or love? Would you like to just befriend or nurture the friendship that you have with this person? Do you genuinely care how things are going in their life? Asking that question. Notice how your heart changes with that intention. Begin watching yourself with specific attention on how your heart feels. Just like we did in the meditation, notice if your heart is soft, open, expanding, or starting to get smaller, more contained, contracted, closed, hard. Breathe into it and feel it expand before speaking. If you notice you're scared, you're protective, you're not sure, breathe into it. And allow some power from this part of you. This is your power center. Allow some power to come into your heart. And know that this is who you are. You're relating these two things together. Your love and who you are. What it is yourself. You'll feel less fear. Notice that as you begin to speak from an open-hearted place, your words arise when your heart is open. And the gentle words might come out as a question or as an I statement of what you see or what you want for you and the person in front of you now. Can you breathe with me? You might picture somebody now that you might want to try this with. But what Cornfield is recommending is that you just take this everywhere in your life. In the trivial conversations, not the big, scary, hairy ones that you've got to have, just in everyday conversations, begin to practice noticing how you are. Am I defended and scared, contracted? Am I relaxed and open? Am I genuinely leaning forward? Do I really want to hear what's going on? Practice noticing your heart status, breathing into it, whenever you're at the gas station, or the grocery store, or the workplace, or in traffic. Just notice and begin to practice willfully choosing to open your heart. Cornfield says the intention that we bring creates the pattern that results. The pattern that comes out of us. We are influencing the world. We have the power to change the world by changing the interior of our own being, bringing the very best of who we are out. Because with this awareness, this practicing this awareness, a miracle begins to occur. The miracle is that the more we are aware of our hearts and our words and our actions, the more we notice the results of them in our lives. We begin to notice how we change, how we speak, or how we are. Or maybe we don't speak. Maybe we're quiet and we listen more because we realize we really care about what's happening outside of our world. We notice the difference when a harsh word is met with a softened heart and when it's met with another harsh word, what happens? We begin to see how those who harm us also create inevitable suffering for themselves. And perhaps how our own hearts soften in compassionate recognition. If I begin to notice how someone that I'm really upset with is suffering also, if I think for a moment, if I said some of the things that person said to me, what would make me say that kind of thing to somebody else? What must I feel like? What must that person feel like? And therein lies a recognition, that's an awful place to be living. That's a painful place to be coming from. Cornfield says, what we do with our heart affects the whole world. If we can untie the karmic knots in our own heart, because we are all interconnected, we say that all the time, we are one. The truth is, that's why karma works at all, is because we are connected. We can't do anything outside of ourselves that does not affect ourselves. We cannot do anything from the interior of our hearts out with our words and our actions that does not affect the world and everyone in it. We're all interconnected, and we inevitably bring healing for the karma of another when we share from a beautiful place of love. Jack Cornfield tells the story, Hindu story, of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna appeared to the rulers of two kingdoms that were being governed in the name of Krishna. One ruler was known to be wicked, cruel, miserly, and jealous. So Lord Krishna appeared to him and gave him a task. He says, travel throughout your own kingdom and see if you can find one person who is truly good in your kingdom. He searched high and low, the lowest of the low, the highest born in his kingdom. He went far and wide, and he returned to his throne, waiting for Lord Krishna to appear. When he did, the ruler said he wasn't able to find even one person who was truly good. Even when they performed good deeds, he said, he got to know them and saw that even their best actions ended up being selfish, conniving, or deluded. Not a single good person could he find in all of his kingdom. Then Lord Krishna went to the other kingdom that bore his name, ruled by a famous queen, known to be kind and gracious, loving and generous. He gave her the task to search in her kingdom for someone truly evil. She did as she was asked, searched high and low, returned to her court and met Lord Krishna there. She said that the worst person she found was either misguided or unskilled in how they reacted to people. Even when their actions indeed caused suffering, she thought, when she listened to them, not one was truly evil, only misguided and miserable themselves. Their actions always came from fear, delusion, and misunderstanding. Cornfield tells us, in both kingdoms, the circumstances of life were governed by the spirit of the rulers, and what they encountered was a reflection of their own hearts. As we pay attention and understand our own heart and grow in the skillful responses of wisdom and compassion, we do our part to make the whole of the earth peaceful. I'm reminded of an experience I had in an Alzheimer's unit. I was learning about Alzheimer's in ministerial school, and we visited an Alzheimer's unit, and we just spent a little time with them at their kind of gathering time. And there was a woman I will never forget. She was dressed beautifully somehow. I think she even had a necklace of pearls on. And she was dressed immaculately and beautifully. And she just beamed at me. And I didn't know her. And I had my name tag on as a student. And she came up to me and she said, "I am so glad you're here. I am so glad to see you." And she took my hand and she said, "Would you come over here and sit with me?" And so I said, "Of course." So we went and we sat down in this little love seat, and she just beamed at me and just seemed so thrilled to see me. And she just began to recount all of the experiences that we had had together. That did I remember when we used to have coffee at her kitchen table and look out the window and see our children playing together in the yard. And I said, "I think I can see that." And she began to recount the things that we did together. I was thinking, not what a crazy old lady is this. I was thinking, man, what a beautiful friend she must have been. How was it that she was able to still have all of that beauty and delight and hospitality? She took it upon herself to greet each person that came into this space. She had that gift of hospitality as a part of her karma, we would say. She had built this energy in her, and even when she wasn't entirely herself, she was able to still give that authentic care and love. A final word from Cornfield I'd like to leave with you tonight. The karmic patterns, he says, that we create through our hearts transcend the limitations of time and space. To awaken the heart of compassion and wisdom in a response to all circumstances is to become a Buddha. When we awaken the Buddha within ourselves, we awaken to a universal force of spirit that can bring compassion and understanding to the whole of the world. Gandhi called this power soul force. It brings strength when powerful action is needed. It brings tremendous love and forgiveness, yet stands and speaks truth as well. It is this power of our heart that brings wisdom and freedom in any circumstance, that brings the kingdom of the Spirit alive here on earth. And so it does. And so you are, and so I am. Namaste.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.